Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of the FitFam podcast. And you'll see missing is Miss Olympia Hillary, but I'm here, Doug the Formulator, and I'm real excited today to talk again to James Li, who's one of the greatest, I think one of the, I don't say newcomers, by the way. I don't want to offend you, but like who's just popped up and it's like, man, doing deep research, being completely unbiased and lots of different subjects, but the one that I always hone in on is the health side of it. And thanks again for joining us today. Sure appreciate
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me back on. Must have done something right the first time, huh?
it. No, we had a lot of great comments, and just recently, you did a deep dive into a subject that's near and dear to my heart. It's one that we've been fighting since way back in the late 80s or early 90s, because it had only been out for about 15 years at that time. But then, we were realizing the damage, and every time we'd try to talk about the damage, we got shut down. We got shut down. We're like, what's going on here? And I really like the work you did on this subject. And what we're talking about is glyphosate. And kind of tell me what even got you to think about going down this road.
Well, I came across, there's a lot of things that people say about glyphosate on both sides, right?
Right.
Whether it's super dangerous, cancer causing, and then another side says it's 100% safe and it actually is good for society because it makes it easier to grow crops. It allows us to produce food cheaper, and therefore we're actually, feeding the masses and therefore not being food insufficient. So those are the two sides of the argument. And I wanted to see which side was more true because I think there's probably, somewhere in between. Usually the truth is somewhere between the two extremes. So I started going down that path to say, okay, what's going on here? So, like you said, glyphosate was introduced back in the 70s by Monsanto as the key ingredient for the weed killer Roundup.
Right.
And the sales when I was looking at it, it wasn't that much. It was very, the adoption wasn't extremely widespread until the 1990s when Monsanto introduced what they call the Roundup Ready crops, which are genetically bioengineered, crops to resist glyphosate. And therefore that led to this massive surge. And now it's in, over 60% of our food supply, which
Yeah.
is kind of crazy. So if it's at 60%, we should probably look at whether it's safe or not. And I was listening to this very interesting interview by, I think it was on News Nation, and the lady was interviewing Jessica Christiansen, who is the head PR person for Bayer CropScience, and continuously pressed on whether or not it was safe.
Well,
And
let's
she's,
back up really quick for a second,
yeah,
if you don't mind, for a lot of the audience. Monsanto was, and anyone in the health field in the 90s and that was like, Monsanto was the devil, right? It's like, these guys, everyone just felt, whether it's true or not, we all, me included, was like, these guys really don't care about health. They only care about money. But Bayer bought Monsanto. So when we're talking about glyphosate and Roundup, we're now talking about the company Bayer, thus talking about Jess Christensen, the PR person from Bayer. And then I'm wanting to continue with that, but one more little background. What's interesting with Roundup with the cells, I've noticed that too, that the cells weren't, it was okay. But then someone there from a great business perspective, not great for morals and health, said, let's create a big picture. And I just kind of envision what happened. It's like, look, how can we get cells up? Well, the problem is it's affecting the crops. Well, let's back up and go after creating these genetically modified seeds in that then make it so that Roundup, the glyphosate, doesn't affect the crops. And then we can say, let's spray it and it only kills the weeds. And no one will look at the damage that was done to those seeds to actually make them so that they could resist the Roundup. But at that point, once they did that, the big plan, right, coming back around saying, okay, here's why we're not selling a lot. What we need to do to sell a lot is make it so that the crops can withstand it and only the weeds are killed. That point in time shifted everything. And you can see it was this brilliant financial move, but terrible for the health of the nation and what's come since then. But anyways, kind of bringing up the speed a little bit, if you don't mind. Monsanto, Bayer bottom, and then now Bayer their main PR person, Jess Christiansen. So what happened with that again?
Yes, that's a good call out because yeah, I did not mention that Monsanto was acquired by Bayer. I think it was like in 2018, I believe, 7 or 8 years ago.
Mhm.
But the big story here, yeah, I think the challenge with this coming from a non-scientific person like me, right? Because the experts or the scientists will also will always say, well, you don't understand any of the studies. You can't, you're not allowed to comment on this. And what I push back on is, well, I just cite some facts, right? It's like, okay, if it's 100% safe, then how is it possible that there are over 180,000 lawsuits filed against Bayer, specifically related to glyphosate, and they've had to pay out over $12 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't sound like it's so safe. And the other thing too, if the product is 100% safe, why is Bayer right now lobbying Congress from at the federal level, also at the state level, as well as putting cases through the Supreme Court, making it illegal to sue Bayer in relation to Roundup or glyphosate causing cancer? That once again does not sound like a company who has a lot of how do you say this, confidence in their product.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
doesn't seem like the actions of somebody who really truly feels it's safe.
Yeah, and that's some crazy statistics. I mean, if you're from a business standpoint, like, oh, we're out 12 billion already, it's probably going to get worse. Let's put a billion, which is a crazy amount of money, into the lobbyists, pushing to try to get it so that basically they're taking the normal pharmaceutical model, right? Let's make it so that this vaccine and this booster and all that we can't be sued for it. And they'll spend the millions or the billions to do that, knowing that they're actually saving money on the back end. But like you said, it's basically kind of, to me, from the outside looking in, admitting that their product does cause harm, and they're making so much money instead of taking it off the market or modifying it so it doesn't cause harm, which now backdates everything all the way back to the genetically modified seeds and everything. Instead of doing the right thing, it's like, what can we do to keep perpetuating this money machine? And I'd like to, because I interrupted you, I apologize. Go back to that Jess Christensen thing. What?
Oh
Tell me
yes.
who that is. What happened there?
Yeah, so Jess Christensen, I was watching her interview and she was pushed on a couple of questions in that interview. First was this the statistics I brought up there of, well, if it's so safe, why are you guys getting sued so much and why are you guys making it illegal to sue you going forward? And she was not able to answer that question. She kind of dodged it by saying, well, we have 50 years of scientific studies that show that it's safe, it doesn't cause cancer, all these things. And she really was unable to answer any questions from the anchor. But that the thing is, like, that's kind of her job literally depends on her saying those things. So I don't really fault, Miss Christensen for saying the things that she says. She's literally there to do talking points, right? She literally says, okay, at the end of the interview, there's three things you need to take away. One, there's no relation to cancer. Two, we're looking into all the studies. Three, we're here for to make sure that people have access to food and all these things like that. So she's there to deliver the talking points. And I think this is where, if we're to zoom out kind of as a country, we have to start at some point deciding what morals other than money do we want to incentivize, right? Because right now it's just whoever can make the most money gets the most amount of power. And the government at one point, at its purest form is designed so it represents the people. But now you have the commingling of the government and these uh, these companies who just are there to make profit. And now they're passing laws, right? There was a letter the other day. This was like a week and a half ago that was sent to Robert F. Kennedy. It was sent to the head of the Department of Agriculture, Rollins, as well as Lee
FDA.
Zeldin, the EPA, talking about how it is dangerous, actually, that we're overregulating glyphosate and we need to relax these regulations so that people can have, or farmers can grow more food and farmers can have access to these necessary tools to allow them to serve the American public, which I think is a mass kind of what you call this. It seems like a very convoluted argument that they're making.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I like
and I
that
looked into
concept.
it a little. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I like that concept. Now that you finished with that, I think that a lot of our doctors around the nation, we have thousands of holistic doctors that we help, teach in nutrition, holistic. Like they're wanting to be more holistic. What do we do? Because they're not taught that in school. And I just got flooded with that letter. Actually, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? What are your thoughts? And I sent back a message saying, yeah, let's look at this. Like, okay, are we not seeing the big picture here? Is it really the best for the nation that, we have something like this so that there can be more crops and cheaper, like you mentioned? I'm knowing the answer, but I'm like, let's look at it type of thing. And it was absolutely amazing to me that if that letter was true, then there wouldn't be any deep dive that we took that would uncover maybe a reason that people signed that. But you did a great job at the people that signed that letter, which was blowing away to me. People like the senators, gosh, was it Chuck? Was his name Grosson, something like
Oh
that?
yeah, so Chuck Grassley, there's a couple people who were key endorsers, couple senators, key endorsers of that letter. One of
Yeah,
them being you mentioned Chuck Grassley. He is from Iowa, and he is one of the largest recipients of money from biotech. And these are firms like Bayer. Okay, so direct conflict of interest, but other companies as well, including Dow Chemical, DuPont, these kinds of companies probably with their own set of incentives. And another Senator Deb Fisher from Nebraska, she is the number one recipient of big ag money in Congress. So we're talking about this is a letter that was basically sponsored by special interests. And
right.
that's kind of my point that I was making is that we seem to have this government where if I have a lot of money, like if you and I, Doug, were billionaires, we could probably make a lot of influence. We could change the way things work quite a bit. And we don't, and let's say we're good people, maybe that's good, but let's say we're bad people. Let's say we wanted to make it so that we want more genetically modified crops because we
Right.
make an argument that that's how we're going to save the world, and we could literally have that, which I would say is a bit of a. I think it's not good for the long term health of this country, and we're seeing this kind of decline, right? We're seeing this increase in chronic disease that is kind of unique to America that doesn't really happen in other countries, and we need to fix that. And if we don't, it's not just it's not just this one issue, but it seeps through to all the other issues. Are we going to be able to compete in all the other different sectors? And I think that's something that we got to really look at is are we able to take a hit now in terms of the money that our major corporations are making and say, hey, no, we want to invest in the long-term health of this country. Is that something that we can get together and do?
Yeah, and that's a great point because the other day someone said, "Why are you so big on these, being against the dyes and the glyphosate and all of these things?" And my answer is really simple. It's like this. Look, I've been in the game since the late 80s. I'm nobody, but the doctors and everyone I work with over the years, we've seen, wait a second, we have these endocrine disruptors. How come we're having these problems? How come the telomeres are shortening and we're aging at a faster rate in America than other places around the world? And this is just data gathering, right? Data gathering since the 90s. And like, what is the problem? What's different? Well, the glyphosate issue, especially here in America, the genetically modified crops here in America. I mean, I love wheat, I love corn, but it's hard to get, great organic forms anymore without it being genetically modified. The pharmaceuticals being pushed at the level they are, and everyone's saying, oh, but it's FDA approved or these things when they get pulled off the market years later. No, it was pushed through lobbyists to make these things happen. And you're right, we're at that tipping point in America where um, do we take a little bit of a hit? Maybe it's a little tough a little bit on some of these large corporations, or maybe even people, all of us a little bit, to be able to do a reset. And I think in life, many times it is a little tough to do a reset with your diet, with your exercise, your lifestyle, whatever it might be, but for the greater good. And at this point in time in America, I think we're able to do it finally. More's happened in the last 60 days than the last, 2 decades of me pushing at my level for things and things are happening. So if there's ever going to be a reset of like, let's take a look at Bayer, let's take a look at these pharmaceutical companies, the big food companies, And let's go back and say, look, the countries that are being the healthiest, they have the least rate of disease. What are they doing right? What are we doing wrong? Even some things we're doing right. And let's do a reset for the health of our nation, for our children and for our grandchildren. And I love this topic because it's not like us against big corporations. It's just us about health and what can we do as a nation to step back, be real about it, look at good, honest statistics of our health, the decline, what's causing it, what's going on here versus other places, and be able to make that reset. Do you think it's even possible to do it on a big level, or how bad is this situation with the lobbyists and this letter and all this stuff?
Well, I think the situation is dire. I think people can feel it. Um, and is it possible? I mean, I would like to think it's possible, right? Because I mean, if it's not possible, then why do we do what we do, right? Which is, throw our hands up and say, well, let's just go along for the ride and sail off into the sunset. So I have to believe that it is possible, but it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to start with people like you continuously educating people and saying, hey, no, this is not the right thing. It may not even be popular for you to say this because you might have to go against, some other ideological or political support or beliefs that you have of certain individuals. But it's a necessary conversation to throw out there and say, do we want, for example, Bayer, right? They not only make Roundup glyphosate, right? But which is linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but they also sell a drug that treats non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So they're making money on both sides of
Both ends, but
on both ends. So we can't have this kind of situation and have a healthy country because they're both incentivized to poison people and cure them of their disease or
the
cure
full cycle, right? Yeah,
exactly. And it's not really a cure because that particular drug has other side effects that maybe, okay, now it's impacting your kidney. Now your kidney's starting to fail. Now you need to take a kidney medication, and and that kidney medication is impacting your heart. All kinds of things going on. And now we have a decline of the human condition.
you got it.
Uh,
And who owns the dialysis centers? And it goes round and round, right? They just keep you in that circle. It's like going to Disneyland. They want to keep you there, which isn't the bad thing, right? They want to supply everything. But when it comes to the health model, it's terrible because they just keep you in that disease cycle. And I love what you're saying with that. And,
but
like,
yeah, I just want to finish. It is possible to do because
yeah,
as you just saw in the last couple of days, right? We are getting rid of all the synthetic food dyes in our food system, which is a big win. I want to credit a lot of those folks like yourselves, Food Babe and Cali Means and those people who have been spearheading that change, even though people say, hey, that's a small change, right? There's still other things about the food system that's screwed up. But I say, well, that's actually a change that the food industry has been fighting for decades, right? They didn't want to make this change,
right.
but they brought it to the forefront and they conceded on this point, probably knowing that there are other things that they can do to make money as well. Because this doesn't impact their supply chain so much because there's already, like they've proven, other countries they already have the formulations of these products without these
Yes.
synthetic guys. So yes, it's going to take them a little bit to modify their supply chain slightly, but it's going to but there are other things like this glyphosate issue that's impacting 60% of our crops, which they're probably not willing to budge on because that's going to be a huge, huge change for them. But that's going to take continuous education of the public to say, hey, no, this is a big deal. And that's why when you can't win an argument, that's when you start to shut down the debate, right? It's like, okay, you're not even allowed to sue anymore, right? You're not, I mean, imagine the logic behind that. It's so safe that it's illegal for you to prove that it's unsafe.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's the craziest thing in the world. And, along with that cycle, what's crazy, what's happened, and I'm not sure it might be something that you even look into. But even within this change that's happening, the big corporations, meaning, Bayer, pharmaceutical companies, big food, they're like, wait a second, we've had this monopoly for so long. I know that a lot of them probably thought nothing's going to change. Like even when Food Babe and then went to Kellogg's, they're like, this isn't that big of a movement. Same thing happened to me with DSHEA. All of the companies thought nothing's going to happen. We're going to be able to get vitamins off the market, and we had this big, uprising, and then DSHEA was passed in the '90s. But they're seeing that now. Like there's nothing they can do about that. There is movement, right? And it. So what do they do? Well, one of the things that's happening is just like happened in the '90s when we passed the DSHEA Act, the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, and vitamins were allowed to stay on the market, all of a sudden the vitamin companies were starting to be bought up by the pharmaceutical companies. We can't beat them, buy them. And recently, there's even been an additional push. So instead of like the number I don't know for sure, but it's high in the 90s of all vitamin companies, just because I know most of them. It's a pretty small world that they're owned in part or fully by pharmaceutical companies. There's even a bigger push lately, and you start to see advertising on TV for these vitamin supplements, but they're synthetically made. Centrum right now has the highest amount of phthalate plastics in it of any product or food in the industry. Like we just got a report back from that. So these chemicals are coming in even to the vitamins. So people are saying, I want to be healthier. I'm going to take vitamins now. And yeah, I'm going to watch my food dyes and all this. And they don't realize that it's already seeped into most vitamin companies that they're synthetic supplements. They're still bringing in these endocrine disruptors that are messing up your GLP-1 and that, so you'll be forced to go do the drugs and all these things. And it is this vicious cycle, but now they're actually parading as health companies, is my point. Is it's not just, okay, I'm going to stay away from the Monsantos of old, right? The Bayer and all these things. They're actually, a lot of people don't realize that Centrum's owned by Pfizer and all of this that's going on. And it's going to get tougher and tougher. They're going to realize more and more, okay, we're the bad guys in view of a lot of the public. So we're going to buy some of the good guys and just start incorporating some of these things. And the bottom line for me is, look, as a public, you need to get to know some of these companies, get to know even some of the food companies that are still holding out, these family owned companies that are trying to do things right, the vitamin companies are trying to do things right. Anything from the area of nutrition, these organic farmers that are trying to do it right, it's going to come to the point, and I think we're there, that it's going to be about relationships. It's who you know and get to know and start sourcing things from people you know and that you feel you can trust. And that's the only way that we can, for our families, for us to be able to ensure that we're doing things at the highest level to be able to reach optimal health as we push. And some of us that are obsessed, like myself and others, like we're going to be out there pushing. Cali Means is going to be pushing, right? RFK is going to be pushing, and we'll stay on the front and take the arrows. But as individuals, we need to just get to know. And the only thing I have, and that's why I want to get your opinion. The only thing I have as far as a recommendation for people is, at this point, you pretty much need to know the people. You need to know the companies and the people that you're, getting some of your health foods from, your vitamins from, and that. And it's the only way to ensure that you're not playing into their game, their cycle. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. We need to start localizing
Hmm.
everything, right? It's the anti-globalist movement. And it's funny that you brought that up, because one thing I forgot to mention about the head of PR at Bayer, Jess Christiansen, is in that interview, I could see her gears turning, because she actually, knowing that I think a lot of people are, I guess, skeptical of groups like the WHO because of everything that happened through COVID, she started pointing out, well, the WHO says that glyphosate could potentially be linked to cancer. And who is the WHO? They are not a regulatory body. Why
Wow.
do we trust them? So they're definitely listening to the people, and um, where the public sentiment is at. They know how people feel about these organizations. So then she name checks one to say, well, do you trust that organization? Right? That's what they're saying.
Mm.
And so then that's, to your point, we need to go back. I think that's what I've been pushing for, is to say, okay, what's the solution to all of this mess? What can you do personally right now to protect yourself? It's knowing the people that you buy from. It's actually making connections with real humans versus these giant corporations. And now, from a personal standpoint, it's been a long time. And since I've regularly, like once in a while, I will still do it, just out of, convenience or whatnot. But I mostly, if I go out to eat, I'm eating at local restaurants, because I know the people that are there. If I'm going to buy groceries, I'm trying to buy groceries from my local supermarket. That's kind of not a chain. It's just one of them. So I know that, hey, there's accountability there, right? There's accountability to your community, to your neighborhood, versus these multinationals where there's no accountability because everybody is just numbers on a spreadsheet. And that's where I come from. I don't know if people know about my background, is I used to be a consultant for big pharma. So I know how these executives think and what they care about, what they don't care about. And people are not really people. People are just numbers, right? I was talking to a colleague, and they were in charge of the sales of I can't remember the drug, but it's an allergy drug, an over-the-counter allergy drug, and they said, okay, business is good, we have projected sales increasing 10% per year. And I just said, well, does that mean that more people are getting allergies? Is that what's happening there? And no,
Crazy.
that's not a thought that pops in their head at all. It's just, well, things are good because I'm selling more of this drug.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great point. And I love you bringing back up your history because, yeah, a lot of people might not know that yet. And that's one of the things that I really love about you. And we were talking beforehand about, I think you should blast that out more because, you're that voice that knows both sides. And you actually are you're very open to, is this good for people or not? And people like me, it's like, okay, glyphosate and all that, I know it's the evil, it's the devil. I have a hard time even trying to look, is there a good in that? And you're one of the people that can do that. I'm so far on the health side of it that a lot of times I'm blinded the wrong way, I'm afraid, and I have to come back to the data and do that. Just like, these pharmaceutical companies are so blinded us in profits. And it's going to take people like you to come in and say, hey, let's listen to what Doug and Hillary are saying and Callie's saying and Casey, but let's also compare it to what they're saying and where's the truth. And a lot of times the money will tell the truth, right? The money will be the factor there. So thank you so much for everything you're doing and to kind of give the FitFam ending to this. Is there something you can do for glyphosate? And the fact that we're consuming it in all these different ways and we're consuming it now, I think a lot of people have got a bell that went off. Oh my gosh, it's actually in the food, that type thing. Like you were spraying the pancakes, I think, in your reel was so awesome.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, if there are natural organic nutrients that can help break down glyphosate in the body, one of them being fulvic minerals. I just finished a study on that today, reading that was really powerful and it's readily available in the market. Also a big fan of probiotics. And the first best place to get probiotics is food, right? Eating more kimchi, eating more sauerkraut, those types of things. Always go to food first before supplements. I make supplements. I manufacture whole food supplements. So it's kind of funny me saying that, but I'm nutritionist first, right? Caring about the health. You need to get it from the food. And because our food's so messed up, I know we'll always be in business, right? Well, we have the whole food supplements, but the food is first. Eat more fermented food. Do take probiotics because in America we don't consume many fermented foods. So probiotics help with the glyphosate. The fulvic minerals help with the glyphosate. Those are two things you can do right now to really help your body internally on a cellular level. Get rid of the glyphosate, the damage, and do that as we're working on the big level across America to see what we can do to get less of it, happening in our food and less of it going into your body. So, hope that helps people. And the last thing is this. One of the things that attracts me and Hillary to you and your work also is that it comes down to, we tell our doctors, look, you want your patient to be able to say, if I do what you say, will I get what you got? And trying to convince the doctors the importance of their health should be a priority instead of thinking, oh, I give it up my health because I care about the patients. Well, that's selfish. Selfless means you take care of your health. And I love seeing you. You obviously are living the lifestyle, right? The exercise, the healthy eating, and thank you so much for just being that beacon personally. And because every time you talk about things, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen that much more because look at him. Like, right? He's living it. And so he cares about it. He's gonna do the deep dive into it because of it. So thank you so much for just who you are.
Hey, I appreciate you saying that, Doug. And it's not easy a lot of time. And we're all humans, right? There's going to be days where we don't feel like it, or there's going to be days where we need, this is from my perspective, a day off, and our body needs to recover. I tell myself that all the time when on a day I don't work out because I kind of feel I've been doing it for so long. My body feels weird when I don't workout that day, like if I don't do something like 15 minutes or 20 minutes of something, but I say, hey, my muscles, there's a recovery that needs to happen as well. And so it's always good to give people a little grace. And that's what I try to do with the content that I make as well, is not to say, hey, you need to listen to every single thing I say. Everything I say is 100% correct. And if you don't follow me, you're the devil. It's not like that. It's that I'm just here to try to hopefully provide you with some information that you can utilize and make better decisions for yourself, but by no means listen to only me. I always say, hey, listen to me, listen to somebody who is taking the complete opposite position of me and see which one makes more sense to you.
Yeah. And check the data and track the money, and you'll find out.
Oh yeah.
Well, thanks again so much and spend the time. Man, keep up the good fight. Appreciate you. And as always, next time we'll have Miss Natural Olympia Hillary with us. But Doug, the formulator, thank you, James, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.
Everyone.